Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the Retained Recruiter Show. My name is James.
And I'm Jo.
And today we're joined by Chris Hickey. Chris, thanks for joining us.
How are you doing, guys?
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, great to have you here. Listen, we're really looking forward to today's session with people. It's a follow-on from last week's session, which was talking about pitching. And when we were talking about that last week, we thought, well, there's nobody better in our network at this moment in time, in my opinion, than Chris Hickey. Chris is the founder and managing director of Mercuryhampton. He established it just over 4 years ago at the back end of 2017. He's been in recruitment for the last 15 years, and he's also got an illustrious career in our armed forces before that in the RAF, I believe. So, Chris, very appreciative to have you here today. So why don't I just let you have the floor for a second and just tell us a little bit about what you've done with Mercuryhampton. I'm happy to give you the floor to sort of, promote yourself. Raise your coffee cup or something like that.
Yeah, okay, yeah, for that. So Mercuryhampton was founded November 2017, and I'd worked for the same company for quite a long time. It was 11 years, so stepping out of the world of the employed to set up your own business is always daunting. But part of my thinking when doing that was I did want something that was going to have some form of USP, and we've since built on those USPs in a series of different ways. But partnering with iIntro was the first major step in our company's differentiator, and it's been one of the best investments we've done. So it's enabled us to scale. It's enabled us to attract better people. It's enabled us to retain people. So once they sell this, it's you don't want to go back to sending a CV. It's pretty. It's sort of it's a fantastic tool, and it really has enabled us as a business to get it to where it is now, which is circa 23 people, a couple of mil turnover, and major growth plans into America and other places. So yeah,
I think that's so impressive, Chris. The fact that over the last 3 or 4 years, particularly when you think about the couple of years we've had in the past, you've actually done what most businesses dream of, which is grow to a substantial size, not to 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people. You found some formula, and this isn't about iIntro, by the way. This is all about you. You found some formula to drive that business, which I'm really impressed about, because we speak to lots of business owners who have a dream of wanting to build a business which has got scale, with a multi-million-pound turnover, and very few people manage to get that. So you and your team are doing an exceptional job over at Mercuryhampton, and so we're hats off to you, Chris. You and your team are doing a great job, and may your success continue for a long time. So last week we were speaking, Chris, and I know you listened in, but last week we were speaking, Chris, about pitching and pitching to win, and talking people through the fact that if you're going to go out there and win work, we're mainly talking about retained work. That's why the show's called the Retained Recruiter Show. So we're talking about that specifically. And I know you'll talk about some of the other work you do as well. But we're trying to impress upon people that you've got to put in place structure and process. So really interested to get your views on what it is that you think and believe that you do differently that sort of sets you apart to go out there and win work. And by all means, drop in your success stories, because people like to hear those things, so they know it's real. And you see, you're at the coalface. That's real. So I'm hoping people are listening in today, and if you are listening, do drop a note and say hello in the chat box. But people want to hear real people like you, Chris, rather than me and Jo. We think.
No, it's fine.
True.
Yeah. Well, you're still real people, but I know what you mean. The structure is important, and it's part of the. I suppose it's part of the process and part of the journey of working with iIntro. I think, for us people who've been in it for sort of 10, 15, 20 years, you've got a structure that probably works for you already, but we're all able to take it to another level. We're all able to develop ourselves, and being open to development is key to turning a business from primarily a contingency model into a retained model. We were in a situation where we were selling retained search before the iIntro partnership, but scaling that was quite challenging because we didn't have a blueprint, and going down the route of recruiting less experienced people and imparting 15, 20 years worth of knowledge on those people, so they've got the confidence to sell that, is quite challenging. So getting to a stage where the structure was, I suppose, embedded in their brain did take a bit of time, but that comes back to the cultural bit as well. So they sort of intertwine to each other. If you've got a culture of high performance and a really rigid methodology whereby you want to encourage people to value their time and not give their time away for nothing, then a retained model, is certainly the best way of moving forward. But we've got this to a stage now where our process is so embedded, not necessarily just in the people, but the culture of working here. So they celebrate retainers in the same way they would celebrate a deal. We last month we got the last 4 weeks we've done 24 retainers.
Wow.
It's it's phenomenal. So, but that's all down to getting the right process, the right structures in place, which obviously you guys have helped us with over the last couple of years.
I think that's really important, particularly around a blueprint. I mean, we've, been, all of us now, we've been in this game for a long, long time. And a lot of recruitment businesses always talk about it being instinctive, but actually instinct is very rarely replicable or scalable because you don't have the formula or the recipe or the blueprint to follow. So I think that idea of sustainability and creating a blueprint for your business is really important. Are there any particular things that sort of stand out to you, Chris, that make your business more effective when it comes to kind of pitching for retainers and winning retainers? Yeah,
I think the process which we've tried to implement, or which we have implemented via the training with our intros, obviously helped. Some of us we come from retained search backgrounds, and we've got our own methodology to pull into it. I think the biggest tip I can give anyone with this is an educational piece. If you hard sell this, you're not going to sell it. You don't have to hard sell it. If you start hard selling it like 1990s, 1980s style, they're going to know that you're hard selling it. So my approach to this is I take the clients through an educational map that get them to understand where they're at, why it's not working, and why their behaviours are influencing behaviours within the recruitment companies as well. Once someone's selected on a contingency basis, the job's not a priority. It gets worked on after 3 o'clock, and it becomes a risk at the finish line, and the quality is compromised. But then the client will then get frustrated that they're not getting the quality. Well, it's because you haven't selected a quality process in the first place. So you can't have both. And I say a lot of things to companies that probably other people are probably too scared to say. Right? I literally address the elephant in the room, tell them how our industry behaves, how their actions are going to influence my behavior, and I've got all of my guys to sell that way, and it's been a game changer.
I think, Chris, so when you sit, you talk about the fact you've got 15 years more recruitment experience, and at a search level as well. Yeah. From your perspective, you see that I think people listening say, well, yeah, that's you, Chris. How do you get that further down the team? Because you're a very charismatic individual, you're very confident, and you're able to say that educational piece to help educate the client is a strength. But how do you do that with, you said you brought on board lesser skilled people. How do you help them have that confidence to pitch that way too? What tools are you enabling with to do that?
We've got a very, very robust onboarding process, which is pre-recorded and digitized. So when everyone joins, they go for a 4-week onboarding process, which is exactly the same. So every single person watches the same onboarding, then they have the same coaching. Then we plug the iIntro training that you guys offer into that as well. So every single person goes through the same process. But also on the first couple of pitches, they're partnered with someone who's experienced. So they're ultimately mirroring, copying, and that's how we all learn recruitment or sales, is through just mirroring people, copying the people who were good, and choosing the things we liked, not using the things maybe that wouldn't work so well for our personality types. And that's what we've done. So when people join the business, we I don't want to say brainwash them, because that sounds a bit autocratic, but we get to a stage whereby we're implementing this process very early when people are joining, so they don't have any fear of selling retained, because it's just absolutely normal. And I think if you join a business and then there's this shift of taking clients' money, which it's viewed, taking clients' money for a retainer fee after you've been in the job for 4 or 5 years, and you're completely going against the behavior that you've been working with, it can be quite daunting. So we hit that really early, so it's just absolutely normal. It's just absolutely normal for someone to pitch a retainer. They will always do that. They will, they don't just order take a job. Yeah, so that's, I don't know if I've answered that question properly there, but yeah, again, we educate the client, educate the people when they join at any level, experienced people and people who are newbies.
Well, I think you've created an environment where people, like I say, the norm is to do it the professional way. I think that's a bit, and Joe, one of our favourites is mindset shift as well. And so rather than using a brainwashing phrase, a mindset shift, Joe, perhaps something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. It all starts with mindset and identity. I mean, when you ask a recruiter, what do you do for a living? The answer is always really telling. Do they find jobs for people? Do they find people for jobs? Do they send CVs? Or do they enable the growth of a business through selling solutions into some of the biggest problems that businesses have? It's how they perceive themselves. And I think one of the things your business is really good at, Chris, is that mindset, building that identity, those beliefs and those values to start off with. I just want to pick up on one thing that you said, actually, Chris, which is I think really, really key. So you talk about pitching, and you talk a lot about when you're in the meeting with the client. I'll testify to the fact that I would suggest about 60 to 70%, maybe even more, recruiters aren't even meeting with clients. They're just trying to close for business on the phone. So do you think client meetings is quite a critical stage of this blueprint then?
Yeah, absolutely. We every single client that is new, we either get in the car and go and see them, or we get them on Zoom or Teams. Especially now, the accessibility of face-to-face meetings via methods like this, it's so easy now. But I'm a bit old school. I still do prefer to be sat in front of someone. I think if it's a new relationship, I don't think selling it on the phone is the best way. I think there's a lot to be gained through the visual education bit within the iIntro model. So showing them the cost calculator, showing them the video interviewing, showing them the McQuaigs, talking through the McQuaigs. If you're trying to do that over the phone, you can do that with an existing client because they've got prior knowledge of using using this. But I just think when it comes to selling retained search, you need to get yourself into a situation where you're in front of the client in one way or form.
Yeah, absolutely. And also one of the things that you picked up on before, I think, is like you said, that education piece. How many recruiters go in and just sell the features of their service into the client? Whereas this is bigger than that, isn't it? This is about trying to help clients and help them with those problems that they've got in their business. Because like you said before, Chris, transactional recruitment, it's inherently quite broken and ineffective as far as a business is concerned. So do you find that clients really pick up on that whole idea that recruitment is ineffective and could be better?
The educational bit here is important. I'm really open, and I say a lot of things that probably 10 years ago I might not have said because I didn't have the experience I had, but I'm brutally honest with the client, and I'll tell them, if you want me to work on this on a contingency basis, this is what will happen. If you want me to work on this on a retained basis, then this is what will happen. I educate them on the pros and cons of each one before trying to close them. And I will only close a retainer if I feel if we can have the value and I feel it's the right thing to do. If it's a role that's wouldn't really fall into something that would need retaining or wouldn't be a value of the business retaining, then I'll take them down a slightly different model. But most of the stuff that we pitch for is sort of mid-market to senior level. So generally, you would want to go down the retain route. There's less candidates. You want to keep control of the process. You want a quality measured process. And it enables the client to be able to replicate it. And that's another bit that you can't do with contingency. There's no measure. It's quite subjective. You might place it, with retained, you can give it the resources needed to make sure that you get the best possible shortlist. You can do the headhunting, you can do the assessments, you can treat it seriously, and you can really turn a process in the company that's probably quite broken into a very structured, methodical, organized process that you can replicate every time. So.
I think educating the client, though, is about sometimes it's about giving said Chris, the pros and cons of each service. and seeing where they're at. And some people, we know some people are just happy with the transactional process because nobody's been brave enough to actually tell them why it's broken. Your current recruitment process is flawed, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect. Let me explain to you why I'm saying that. And at the end of it, if you don't believe me, I can walk out the door. Because at the end of the day, I always say this: when you go into a meeting, Chris, with a prospect, there's two of you in the room. One of you's got a problem, and it's not you. Yeah, that's they've agreed to see you because something isn't quite right, but nobody's been brave enough just to push that out and say, yeah, this is me. So people who are listening into this, Chris, are probably thinking, well, it's all well and good for you to say retain, but a couple of things you said there I want to pick up on for people listening. Chris, you said mid-market to senior. So let's just be crudely sort of define. What do you mean by mid-market in terms of salary? What would you retain salaries on?
Mid-market is an internal term for us, I suppose. So I could use a different term. I'd probably deem that as white-collar professional. So that salary range it's quite a broad range, really. It could be anything from, say, 35 to 40 grand.
And that's the point, Chris. So
up to 60K. So
I want to get people listening saying this isn't about executive search. It is, but it's I just want people to realise that you can deliver a different type of service. You can pitch a different type of service if you're prepared to educate the client on why their current process is broken and what your process, Chris, will do to help them. So I just want to break that myth.
I've got a really good tip on that, actually. This comes into the the educational mindset bit when we're hiring people who have come from other firms, and they think that too. They're coming into the firm and we're saying, why aren't you trying to pitch this role at 40 grand? Why aren't you trying to get this retained? Oh, we wouldn't do that. In our last company, it was just executive search. Well, it's not about the salary. It's about the service. It's about the quality of the service. It's about doing the right thing. And doing the job properly. And if you educate the client enough, then they'll see it from our side. And so, I agree, James. I think, that professional level recruitment, it's such a big piece of the market, yet we're only trying to retain this top bit. Well, this is where the growth comes. The growth in the retained market comes from retaining the mass market. Yeah. Everyone's going to try and retain an MD or a sales director. Every single company on this world will try and do that. But this bit, there's more of it. So this is where your growth comes if you're trying to grow a company. It's this bit here.
A couple of other challenges, people listening and say, but the problem is that when you want to retain, you normally would talk about higher fees. So what are the objections that people are probably thinking, and how have you overcome those? Why should people retain you in a pitch? What's your kickback to that one? Is this just not about paying 2/3 of the fee before I've even seen anybody? What are your counters to that to help overcome that? So I want people to sort of hear what you say. And I need you to get out a statistic soon. I need you to
okay, good. Yeah, okay.
The 30, 40, 50 deals.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on what the objection is. The first objection is generally clients don't understand how the behavior and the methodology changes between retained and contingency. So my example I give them is, you've got the open candidate market, which is candidates who are accessible on job boards and applying for jobs. And then you've got the closed candidate market, which the passive market, then non-accessible. In most cases, the managing director that I'm speaking to, he's not on the open market. He's a closed market candidate. But if I rang him to go and be the CEO of Shell, he'd speak to me because he's a human being. So, but the only way that conversation's ever going to happen is if they're retaining a recruitment company. So I've used that to flip it on their side. Do you want to just access people who are, getting made redundant, maybe not performing, to just throwing the CV on a job board, or do you want to access the whole market? If you do, it's going to take time, and it's going to take my time, and you're going to. But I will map out the whole market for you, so you have access to the best people, not just the best people who are looking on a job board. So that's one way of combating that bit. I throw in the guarantees as well, James. The long guarantees, the 6 months, 12-month guarantee, dependent on the commercials that we agree with the company.
Just explain what you mean by guarantee, Chris.
Yeah,
for those people who don't know what we're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So we, as part of the process with iIntro, for those who haven't used iIntro before, the methodology includes a benchmarking process, which ultimately gives us and the client confidence that a very high percentage of people are going to make it to their 12-month anniversary. And because the methodology works, we're able to offer that a guarantee of 6 to 12 months to potential clients. And that ensures that the investment that they're paying, albeit a slightly higher fee through going down a retained model, if the client leaves after 5 months and 2 weeks, well, that 10 grand fee they've just paid, they're it's safe. It's a safe investment. So the extra 2.5%, 5%, whatever it is, 7, 10%, that's a lot less than another 10 grand fee. So no one in the contingency world does that.
So a risk reversal policy of actually offering them a free replacement for up to 12 months is sort of where we're trying to do. And again, it's explaining those things, and you can only do that because you're delivering a service. And it comes back to that service proposition. That's what I think makes a difference to people. But it's getting in to talk to companies, Chris, who where you can actually get the ability to explain that. That's the challenge that people face as well. How do you get in front of people?
I suppose in a number of ways. We've got a marketing process internally which enables us to follow up and get to a stage where we can book the meetings in. But every single time we're in a situation where we're taking a job order, we try to refrain from doing it on the phone. We'll take some information on the phone, but then we will immediately try to book a face-to-face meeting or get the meeting on Teams or Zoom. And so I suppose a lot of the methodology around getting a meeting or getting a Teams call is no different than in the old days when we get on the phone and make calls to win vacancies. It's no different. It's the same process. It's just that you're slightly tweaking the process midway, and you want to get them in a situation where you're pitching to them face to face, or you're at least sharing your screen on Teams or Zoom so they can see some of the technology. Doing it on the phone, you can sell it to existing customers on the phone, absolutely. But when it's a new company, I just think you need to make extra efforts to try and impress them. And
I think it's that extra effort to get them to say, listen, I'm not here just to take a job order from you on the phone, because that can be done easily. We all know how you can take a job down in 5 minutes, and you're often searching on a transactional basis, but you're never going to convince a client to pay you that. But it's still that sometimes getting through. One of the tools we also use, Chris, and you mentioned it a couple of times, we work with the McQuaig Institute on the behavioural assessment side, and we use a tool which is called a job survey to push. We use it as a pre-sales or a pre-marketing or a marketing tool, not pre-marketing, a marketing tool or pre-sales tool to ahead of going to that meeting to say, listen, when we come along, we can talk about some of the other things about why your current process has failed. I think we can drop those in as well. So I think as long as you do some of those things. So we all face challenges, Chris. So it's really in terms of, I do need you, because I know you're very modest. 3 times. Give me some success stats, Chris.
So we I can give you a few actually. So 70% of our business is retained at the moment. We are gunning to get that higher. Our pipeline at the minute is circa about £1 million, and 70% of that's retained. My personal successes are, last year I pitched 31 times and I won 29. So I mean that's high.
I can't believe you dropped 2 deals, Chris.
Yeah, I did.
I know.
They must have, I don't know. I don't know who won those. Whoever won them did a good job. So, but you're not going to win every one of them. But on average in the business, we're pitching for every 10, we're winning 7 as a cross average, and and that's across the 23 people. So that's a lot. What's
the benefit to you, Chris? Though, as a business owner, what's the benefit to you of having that order book, that 700k?
Well, it enables growth and forecasting. The reason we've been able to scale during COVID is because the money was ultimately locked in. So when other businesses who were working on maybe a contingency model or had solely a contract business, all of the contractors were finished in COVID. Contingency, mass market type roles, they were just put on hold. So while everyone was scrapping around, we were pitching retained search for critical roles in businesses. And it enables us to lock the client in, but also scale the client as well. Once they've used this process and they've worked with us, they're not really, we're hoping they're not going to go anywhere else. We've had 2 years consistent repeat business as well. We won an award for that. So 2 years of literally, we've had no clients leave from what I can see.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's been really, really good. But
and that's Chris, that story that you talk about there. I mean, it's really how our intro was founded. And if anybody sort of wants to sort of speak to our founders, speak to Palm and book a consultation with them, he'll tell you the story about how running a transactional contingent business and having a big order book, how it can evaporate, and that just cancels all your growth. And I think what you've done, and it's hats off to you in terms of getting your business up to 50, 60, 70% retained, means that you can forward plan. And as business owners, that's I think that one of the keys to your success. Because if you're just holding a paper order book saying, well, my pipeline's massive, boss. We've all seen those in transactions. We've all seen them evaporate as well. So hopefully, that can continue. So, very well done. And that success statistic, 29 out of 31. That's why I invited you today, Chris.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I'm sorry it's not higher.
Well, exactly. It's fine. That's higher than most people we meet. Because you're actually the old phrase, you can't win them all. Well, maybe you can, but actually you can't win them all, Chris, and your statistics are amazing there. So well done. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Chris, please do look him up on LinkedIn. You can find him very easily. Him and his colleagues at Mercuryhampton. A great success story, and we're really delighted and proud to have you as a client of ours, Chris, and long may that continue. But it's not, I think one of the things we spoke about earlier, technology is an enabler, but it's not just us. When we're here today to talk to people, there are other tools that you use. I think you use multiple platforms, don't you, to help your people and retain your people in your business as well.
Yeah. We use a series of different, I suppose, AI-based technologies. This was the catalyst. This was the first one, and this enabled us to. This gave us the platform to grow. But we've plugged lots of other ones in since that point. And again, it's not only is it enhanced the client's experience through working with us, it's put us in a situation in our business whereby we are protected from a really saturated recruitment market, whereby everyone's trying to steal each other's staff right now. So if they're trying to steal our staff, good luck, because you're going to have to, it's going to have to be like Cyberdyne Systems to pull someone out of here at the minute, So, and our attrition is nominal. I don't think we've not had anyone resign. We have one resignation in 2 years, I think, So it's, it's.
Oh, well, and again, I think we all know those of us in the recruitment world know that, that's pretty impressive as well in recruitment business. They're a high churn sector. We've just got a couple of minutes left, Joe. So I'm going to let you have a couple of questions. I've got a myth buster I need to sort of put in before you ask your last questions, Joe.
No problem.
The co-founders of iIntro are a guy called Plamen Ivanov, a larger-than-life character, and also his business partner, a guy called Paul Hickey. So the myth is, Chris, are you connected to Paul Hickey?
No. Paul's a top guy. Yeah. He's a top guy, very talented guy.
And so no people who watch it think, he's got his cousin on or his brother on.
No, not at all. No,
you're also better looking than him as well, Chris.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, Paul, if you're listening.
I'll take that.
Joe, final couple of questions before we wrap up for the day. Anything to sort of ask Chris or elicit from Chris?
Yeah, sure. I think the final question really is, we get a lot of people who listen to this, and I think they love listening to these podcasts and these shows because they're inspiring, but also I think they need to know where to start. So if there was a business out there that's listening to this, that's thinking, gosh, Chris sounds like he's got this pegged, I wouldn't even know how to begin to start presenting retained solutions to my clients. What would your advice be to somebody who is literally just wanting to start and get the ball rolling on this?
I think my first bit of advice is, and this is no different than what I did maybe about 10 years ago, is I started to network, and I started to talk to businesses. I started to talk to people who were well respected in the industry, and then that led us eventually to, we spoke to Plamen, who's the most charismatic guy I've ever met in my life, and you've got to go on that journey of, I suppose, finding the answers that work best for your business. I'm happy to answer any questions from anyone if someone wants to ring me. It'd probably take quite a long time to talk through some form of roadmap. But the first thing, Joe, is just a mindset change, really. That's the thing. And that can come from within. That needs to come from within. And it's something that you can action very, very quickly.
Yeah,
great piece of advice there, Chris, and appreciate that you're open to talk to people. So listen, we're just coming to the end of the show today. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. It's been fantastic to have Chris Hickey, MD and founder of Mercuryhampton, with us. So thanks very much for listening. Hope you can tune in next week. Next week, we're going to be talking about, forgot to mention this, Joe. Next week, we're going to talk about attracting, how to attract clients, and also how to attract candidates in a very tough market. So please do join us next week for the session. Same time, same place. Look forward to seeing you there. So it's goodbye from James.
It's goodbye from Joe.
See you guys. See you soon, guys.
Thanks very much, everyone. Love to
Thanks,
see you.
Chris.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.